I'm Capriana, and I'm an interviewer here at WMAP Radio. You can tune in weekdays from 2 to 5 to catch me and some of the incredible guests that join us on our show, from doctors to authors, life coaches, actors to entrepreneurs. You can hear their stories here every day. Tune into our Long Island station, 103.9 FM weeknights from 7 to 8, in Orlando, Florida, 94.1 The Bud, and 24/7 at WMAPradio.com, where we bring you the world's most amazing people. Make us part of your day.
All right, what's going on, WMAP Radio? It's Capriana. So I have a really awesome guest ahead. Every time I get her on WMAP Radio for an interview, it's always so incredible, all the stories that she has to say. Her name is Marilynn Hughes. She is the author of Out of Body Travel, and she is the founder of Out of Body Travel Foundation as well. And not to mention, she is also part of our Simply Amazing Women book series. So Marilynn Hughes, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Capriana?
I am doing good. Thank you for coming on WMAP Radio today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. So I know, you've been on our show multiple times before, and every time you come on, you have something different to tell all the listeners. So I know that you are the author of Out of Body Travel, and, you have been experiencing these out of body travel sensations. So if you can just give us a background on who you are and what you do for my listeners that aren't familiar with your story.
Sure, yeah. So I've written about over 90 books on out-of-body travel. The two books that I recommend for people who are just starting out are Come to Wisdom's Door and The Mysteries of the Redemption. All of our books are available for free download at outofbodytravel.org. We have also a free course of study for anyone interested in taking that as well. Spiritual counseling is available as well. I started having experiences when I was a very young girl, and they came back when I was a young woman, and I just have been doing it ever since. In the year 2001, I was diagnosed with a terminal illness. It was cardiomyopathy, heart failure. And in the year 2003, I had a life-changing near-death experience, which we talked about last time. And I was given the option of crossing over or coming back. And when I decided to come back, I was told that they were going to make good use of me. And they showed me an awful lot of books, and therefore the books have been coming flying out of me, I guess. So the Out of Body Travel Foundation was born that year. And there you go. I guess that's where we begin.
Definitely. And so I know the last time that we spoke, you told us so much about these out-of-body travels and how to go about having one. And, a lot of people, they experience them, right before death. And that is the craziest part. And I understand that you had heart failure surgery, but you didn't get this out-of-body travel experience during the surgery. You actually got it the day before.
Yes. Well, this one was more of a near-death experience is what we described last time, and that was because I had heart failure, cardiomyopathy, which is known for, very fatal ventricular arrhythmias. It's very common, and so it was most likely a ventricular arrhythmia that brought that about when that occurred.
Wow. Okay. So do you think that was the reason that you had this out-of-body travel experience, or is it because you've had this, multiple times before and it just is more easily able to come to you?
Well, I think probably both. I have heard of many people since, just even in the last 5 years, who have what are very resembling of near-death experiences when they're not really where you would be technically near death. They might be very, very sick, but not near death according to scientific criteria, or it can't be proven if you're not in a hospital or whatever. And so I think it does happen. In my case, I've had thousands of out-of-body experiences since I was 22, so it might be a little different, but I'm definitely hearing that other people are having experiences like these. The out-of-body experiences that people have when they're not near death versus when they are near death, have a lot of similarities. They're not that profoundly different. There are some similarities to them, but they are kind of like in the same family of experience, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about this. So I know you say that you hear a lot about people having these out-of-body travel experiences, but how would one actually go about having one of these? Do you have to be in a certain mindset or a frame of mind in order to achieve this?
Well, some people do and some people don't. A lot of people will experience it spontaneously, and that would be, it can come completely out of nowhere. And then there are those who are actually seeking them out. Many people will they'll have experiences like these when they're not necessarily seeking out-of-body experiences, but perhaps engaged in a lot of prayer and meditation. Mm-hmm. And so they might be doing some other types of spiritual practices, and something like this comes from it, but they weren't, actually seeking it out either. But it can come about really in any of those three ways. At the website, if you read Come to Wisdom's Door and the Mysteries of the Redemption, most of our readers end up having spontaneous experiences as they're reading those books. We also have the free course of study that people are taking, and we have a lot of people who are having those experiences and taking them deeper all the time. And for some reason, when they do that, and when they follow the guidance and the directions there, it's happening for them.
And you said at the website, it was outofbodytravel.org. Is that where we would be able to find that information as well?
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Just trying to promote you some way. So I know we have spoken about, everything that has to do with out-of-body travel experiences on your half. So I want to kind of backtrack about, talking about your childhood and what was that like?
In what manner? What part of it?
So I mean, if I'm trying to figure this out, I'm sure a lot of my listeners are trying to figure this out as well, because, having this out-of-body travel experience isn't as common. I mean, for myself, I am not sure if I really know anybody that is able to do this or has tried to do this. So at a young age, were you having these types of experiences as well?
No. When I was young, I had one experience when I was 9 years old where I had a really, really powerful out-of-body experience, and I was shown that I had a particular destiny that I had to fulfill that would come back to me later on in life, which did when I was about 22. And so my childhood was pretty, typical. I think that maybe the trying to figure out why would be kind of a waste of time, because it really goes back to each of us having our different callings.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We're all given a different calling, so we're all drawn in a different direction. It's no different than why would someone become a teacher versus a nurse or a scientist, It's just a different calling.
Definitely.
If that makes any sense.
Of course. But have you always had a faith in God, or from these out-of-body travel experiences, has your faith in God become even stronger?
Well, ironically, yes, of course it has. I always did have a faith in God. And when I say of course, I'm saying yes, my faith has gotten stronger is what I'm saying of course to. Interestingly, most of my extended family members were atheists, and I never was. Always had a strong faith, even as a child. And one of the things that people are often taken aback by is, they when they find out that I am personally Catholic, they're like, well, you're raised Catholic, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I wasn't raised Catholic. my experiences led me to become Catholic.
Right. And that's definitely very surprising, hearing all these experiences that you've had. And I mean, just the whole out-of-body travel just in itself, it seems like, you would have been brought up Catholic. But I mean, from all this and, you trying to find yourself as a woman, I mean, it definitely seems like all of these experiences has definitely helped you connect better with your faith.
Well, yeah, and so, and I really didn't know anything about Catholicism before I began my search, so I started studying all the different world religions, and then, I was having out-of-body experiences all along the way, and all along the way I was having a lot of guidance. These experiences were telling me what I needed to study, and in fact, our course of study at the website is geared around the actual order of how things were directed for me to study. Because that's what a lot of people ask me, well, what were you told to do? And it's like, okay, well, I'll just recreate it on the website, and you can do exactly what I was told to do.
So let's talk about the website for a second. So it's called outofbodytravel.org. When we log onto this website, what exactly are we looking at? I guess I can say.
Well, you're going to be at the homepage, which there's some information, some introductory stuff about the Out-of-Body Travel Foundation, and as you scroll down, we've got a featured book and some information about the founding of the Out-of-Body Travel Foundation in the year 2003, and the fact that we started our foundation with the onus to reduce spiritual hunger worldwide, which came from the mouth of Mother Teresa, because she had noted that spiritual hunger was more serious in her eyes than physical hunger, and that I grabbed a hold of that one and decided that I was going to do something about it. And then at that time, it was 2003, so downloading things on the internet was a new thing. So there was a lot of effort put into that to make everything downloadable at that time. Now it's a lot easier.
Right.
In 2004, there was a tsunami, and so we started raising money for other projects around the world. And if you go to the charitable projects page, which you can find underneath the main menu page, in that menu bar, you'll find it. You can take a look at all the different projects we've done, but we've built houses and dug wells and done sanitation and lots of things like that. And we're trying to focus on, helping out people in third world conditions who do not have the type of lifestyle where seeking out their spiritual journey is even really an option for them.
Right. And
then you're going to find a menu up at the top of the page. I think it's the one on the far right is out-of-body books. And if you click on there, you're going to go to a page where you can download any of our books, and if you click on the books, you can also go to their individual page, and you can purchase them in Audible, paperback, Kindle, or any other electronic format. We also have a music and art page where you can hear all our music, and you can also purchase it in CD or MP3s or whatever works for you. We also then have there's a review section of tons of book reviews and critical reviews, as well as an appearances section. You can watch the documentary that was done featuring our work. It's called The Road to Armageddon, a spiritual documentary. It's underneath appearances. And then you also have the course of study, which we've already talked about, which, again, you can take for free. And a lot of people are finding that really helpful for their spiritual enrichment and their journey towards expanding their awareness. So that's what you're going to find at the site.
So pretty much you're just a remarkable woman that does it all. I mean,
well, thank you.
To go.
I try. I don't know if that is true. true or not, but yeah.
I mean, to try to change the life for other people, and with what you said about the tsunami and all your charities and trying to give back to people. I mean, that's something really incredible that you should be extremely proud of. So would we be able to find information on how to donate to other charities on your website as well?
Oh yeah, and I would really appreciate it if there's anyone out there who is open to that. If you go on the first tab on the site, underneath there you'll see charitable projects, and you can donate there. We have 3 projects that we're trying to fund right now. We have a family inside Venezuela that we've been funding for about 9 months, and they're funding a whole bunch of families in Venezuela. So we're keeping some of these people alive who can't get out of Venezuela while the Maduro reign is going on. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to keep them with food and just basic supplies. We also have 12 sponsored children and elderly adults through the Foundation for Children in Need, and we're raising money for that.
Incredible.
And I haven't had a chance to put it up on the site yet, but it's going to be going up. We have in Africa a medical center that just went up that's going to be providing a whole bunch of medical care to a huge portion in Nigeria that hasn't had the opportunity to receive any type of basic medical care for a very long time. And what they need right now is an over-the-ground reservoir that will provide the water for the medical center and the outlying towns. So we're going to be trying to raise money for that, too. So if anyone out there feels that they are in a position to give, we welcome that kind of help. If you have any questions about it, my email's up at the top of every page. It's Marilynn Hughes at outofbodytravel.org. And, of course, if you have any questions about out-of-body travel, you can always send those to me, too.
And of course, I want to stress this to people. You don't even have to just give a big donation, but any little bit helps with any charities that are going around. It all starts with $5 from one person, and then, $5 from another person, and eventually it adds up to such a big amount. So definitely check out our website. It's outofbodytravel.org. And I know that you mentioned that you have a book series. So let's talk about this for a minute.
Well, I was going to talk about a few different book series that we have out that are some of our more favorite series that I thought we should throw out there for some people that we haven't discussed yet.
Yeah, let's hear it.
One of them is it's kind of important to me because it's the only one in the English language, but it's called The Voice of the Prophets, Wisdom of the Ages. It's a 12-volume encyclopedia of ancient sacred texts in English that we have available. You can download the whole thing at the site, just like everything else. Mm-hmm. And, of course, you can purchase it. But this one is literally the only English language encyclopedia of ancient sacred texts. And in our previous conversations, we've talked about how influential and important the ancient sacred texts have been in this journey because of the fact that, we stand on the shoulders of many great mystics and prophets and, ascetics who have gone before us. And these are the pivotal texts of our world, what holds the 4 corners of our world together,
Of course.
So that's one of my projects that will always be near and dear to my heart. And a lot of our readers use those even during just their studying for reference, because if they particularly like a particular text. Most of my writing, I utilize some quotes from ancient sacred texts from around the world to kind of, illustrate points that I'm making in my other works. And then when someone really wow, I really like that particular text, and they can go back and read the whole thing in the encyclopedia. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And then, we also, there were 2 sets of 2 trilogies. One is called the Mystical Captive series. The second was called the Solitary series. And these are a couple of sets that would follow what we've talked a lot about, which is we talked a lot about Come to Wisdom's Door, which is the first book in the how-to series, and Mysteries of the Redemption, which is the first book in the Mysteries of the Redemption series. And these are the ones that would follow those up. And this one is two of my favorites, and apparently the favorites of a lot of my readers, because they go into the mystical captive, takes the soul into the part of the journey where you become like a captive of God. It's when you become so enamored with God and with Christ that you literally, it's almost like you can imagine yourself kind of like puppy love, you know. But you go through this period of captivity that, you know, and it's a word that's used sometimes in mystical theology. Mm-hmm. It's where you have a captive heart. You know, God has my captive heart. And you're moving through, you know, there's 3 books in this series. One's called The Mystical Captive. The second is The Mystical Freeborn. And then The Royal Question. And you can gather from those titles that this captivity moves and bends and forays into higher and higher states of spiritual freedom and spiritual cognizance, which then moves into the Solitary series, which is also a trilogy. And, you know, they're very hard to put into words, but I'll do my best. I always tell people I'm a much better writer than I am a speaker, so... But, you know, the Solitary also has 3, so it's the Solitary, the Emissary, and the Potentate. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so as the mystical captive has moved through and answered the royal question, you know, they go into the state of the Solitary. And in that solitary state, the soul is now transforming and becoming something different. And what you're going to find in the Solitary series is as the Solitary becomes the Emissary and then the Potentate, it's such a beautiful and really, explosively different change to mm-hmm. what we are as a soul, as a spiritual being, that we literally are exchanging our molecular structure for that of light. And by so doing, we become capable of altering realities in a completely different way. And it's because what happens is we become capable of altering simply by the nature of who we become and who we are. And it's just such a beautiful thing. But if you imagine this in the manner of, like, for instance, have you ever been exposed to the Marian apparitions, for instance?
I have actually never heard that term before, so please elaborate.
Okay. Okay. Well, I will try, and for your listeners who have, they'll understand what I'm saying. But, you know, like in Fatima, Portugal, or in Bitania, Egypt, in Brazil, where they had some of this happened, Medjugorje, especially in the 20th century, there was about 12 different areas of the world where there were a series of very powerful Marian apparitions. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to just focus on Fatima for just starters here, because most people who know anything about them have heard of Fatima. Mm-hmm. And basically, for you and for those who had not heard of it, these are events where the Blessed Virgin Mary has unexpectedly and very powerfully appeared to somebody, very often and usually a group of children, at some point in time, and left really important messages for humankind to abide by. Mm-hmm. And in 1917 in Fatima, Portugal, there were 3 children who were just shepherd children. They were out watching the sheep, and all of a sudden they had their first apparition with the Blessed Mother. There's a lot more to it, but this gives you the general idea. When the Blessed Mother entered into their sphere, so to speak, this is what I want. I want you and your listeners to try to feel this, because this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the potentate. Those children, without any conscious awareness on their part, immediately were thrust to their knees. Their hands were placed into a position of prayer, and their faces and their eyes were looking up. They could not blink. They did not move for the duration of the visit. Wow. And that's what I mean by that. Mary, the Blessed Mother, was more than a potentate. She commanded without intending to. It was the nature of who she was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And so you have a book, one of the many books that you have talks about this as well.
It doesn't talk about Fatima, but there are many, many books out there on Fatima. I'm using Fatima as an example, but the potentate is the third in the solitary series. And the solitary series discusses this process of how a soul transmutates, so to speak, through the evolution and the transformation that comes from going into the solitary spaces and being formed and molded by God into a greater and greater and greater construct, an energy that can affect and alter worlds and realities in a very different way. It's a very complicated thing when you get to this point. At the same time, I'd like to say that I don't have any readers who have any trouble understanding it when they read them. When you read the books in the order that they're given to you, you're going to do just fine. And I haven't even had people have trouble with them when they read them out of order.
So I actually want to stop right here so I know where we could pick up again once we have you back on WMAP Radio. So this is a really good place to stop for today. We talked about your book series and the multiple books that you have written, and also this Fatima. I mean, it's all so interesting and so intriguing. What is a good website that we would be able to find your books? Are they available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble?
Both Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and also at outofbodytravel.org.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And if anybody is interested in checking out our website, I mean, she does so many incredible things. She is the founder of the Out of Body Travel Foundation. She's the author of Out of Body Travel. And, she donates and starts all these beautiful charities for people all around the world. She's doing so many incredible things. So definitely check out her website. Once again, it's outofbodytravel.org. And Marilynn Hughes, it was really great having you on WMAP Radio. I can't wait to have you on again.
Oh, thank you, Capriana.
All right. You take care now. Have a great rest of your week.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. So we have a stacked lineup today. We have a 3, 4, and 5 p.m. So stay tuned here on WMAP Radio.